Okay, welcome everybody. This is our last meeting of the year.
Yay.
How great.
Say that out loud.
The end of 2019. Next time we meet, we'll all be in 2020. So welcome to our December
It's the
meeting.
passing of a decade.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so I'd like to lead off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I just got a call from our county legislator, and she is delayed out at the Clinton meeting. So I'm going to read what she sent me into the record for our county legislators, from our county legislator, Brendan Kearney. So hello, Rhinebeck. I've asked Mayor Bassett to read this on my behalf as I am currently at the Clinton Town Board meeting, but looking forward to being here next month. I am pleased to announce that I voted to approve the 2020 Dutchess County budget last week. As you know, I've been pushing to establish a regularly staffed hazardous waste drop-off site in Dutchess County. Currently, the county hosts 3 days a year, which can accommodate 360 households a day maximum. Each event requires that residents register in advance, and people are often turned away for lack of access. This means we are not able to fully meet the recycling needs of our county and leaves open the possibility that hazardous waste eventually makes its way into our environment from lack of proper disposal. Rhinebeck prides itself on its environmental initiatives, and I know this drop-off site is a priority for our residents here. I worked to make sure the approved budget includes funding for a study to be conducted by the Dutchess County Environmental Management Committee to help us develop a plan to fund this project and make it a reality for Dutchess County. I will continue working this year to make that project a reality. Another item of interest was the approval of a county-funded program that will allow individual school districts the option of participating in the installation and maintenance of a school bus photo violation monitoring system mounted on school buses themselves, which would record drivers in violation of school bus safety laws and aid in the enforcement of monetary fines and penalties against such drivers, beginning with a $250 fine for the first offense. The complete law is available for review on the Dutchess County website and on the county legislator's Facebook page. Keeping our children safe is a high priority for me, and I voted to approve this program. As always, please feel free to reach out to Brennan with any questions or concerns. Her number is 646-773-1905. Respectively, Brennan Kearney. Okay. Next, we're having a presentation by Andrew. Where's Andrew? There's Andrew.
Hey, folks.
This presentation is on food and, it's called Food and Water
That's
Watch.
the organization I'm with.
That's the organization, right?
And it's on Dan Scanner.
Oh, that's it. Now I remember. I'm sorry. I forgot the.
Oh, good, don't worry.
You might want to tell everybody what Dan Scammer is.
Some packets for you very quickly. So in here are a couple of things. One is a one-pager on Dan Scammer, which is a power plant proposal for, I'm going to set a timer for myself because I want to take very little of your time. A power plant proposal for the town of Newburgh. So a bit far afield from here, but well within what scientists consider the pollution shed.
Could you do me a favor, Andrew, and go to the microphone?
Absolutely.
That way we can pick you up easier for when it gets played back.
Okay, so we have,
Thank you.
I give myself 5 minutes. All right, so I'm Andrew. I am the Hudson Valley organizer with an organization called Food and Water Watch. We're about 1 million members nationwide, 140,000 in New York. somewhere around 350 in the village and town of Rhinebeck. So I represent, some of your constituents as well. I work in coalition with a number of other organizations, very diverse, mission-wise, very diverse demographic-wise. One of the things we're working on right now, and what I'm going to ask you to take action on today, is the Danskammer fracked gas power plant. I have two requests, two political actions for you. One is the passage or the consideration of the passage of a memorializing resolution in opposition to the Danskammer power plant. And the other is, as individual trustees and the mayor, to sign on to an elected official sign-on letter to Governor Cuomo and the Public Service Commission, asking them to use their authority to deny permits for this power plant proposal, which actually the formal application is dropped tomorrow, which kicks off a 12-month siting process in the state, but memorializing resolutions as well as signatures on the elected official sign-on letter are all considered collectively as part of that siting process. So obviously you're not the primary decision makers on this. Governor Cuomo and the Public Service Commission are, but it has a meaningful impact. You'd be joining a chorus of other communities in the Hudson Valley where 13 and counting towns, municipalities, and county legislatures who've passed memorializing resolutions against this particular power plant proposal. So now to the Danskammer. We take issue with really every facet of the project. Basically, there's an old power plant which is 5 to 10 feet from the edge of the Hudson River. People have probably seen it when they go across the Beacon-Newburgh Bridge. It's been there a very long time. It was an old coal-fired power plant. It got repurposed, repowered after flooding in Superstorm Sandy to run on what I consider dangerous fracked gas, natural gas. And a company that's kind of a conglomeration of Wall Street hedge funds and energy portfolio companies, Tiger Infrastructure and Danskammer LLC, are asking to repower the site, which to them actually means to build a brand new facility next to the old one, and a brand new facility that will run as a baseload facility rather than as a peaker facility. The power plant there right now is a peaker facility, so it only runs during high energy need times of the year, just the middle of summer. I think it runs 3 days a year, actually. But they plan on building a new fracked gas power plant to run 100% of the time as a baseload facility. Now, they're seizing on, I think, an anxiety in the marketplace, the media marketplace, about the closing of Indian Point. Which I think everyone has some anxiety about, but New York State since 2012 has been planning for the decommissioning of Indian Point and has actually completely covered the megawatt deficit gap covered by the decommissioning of reactors 1 and 2 at Indian Point. So there's a little bit of information in there if you want any more about what NYSO, the New York Independent System Operator, has said about why this is not a necessary plant to fulfill New York's energy needs. From a water perspective, they're going to have diesel fuel and aqueous ammonia stored on site on the floodplain. So it's a site that's flooded before. It seems like a really poor place to put a new power plant. From an environmental justice perspective, it's 2 square miles from the downtown center city of Newburgh. It's a community that's majority minority, Latinx, African American. They've already been struggling with a water contamination crisis. They have PFAS and PFOA chemicals actually in their watershed. So it's a community that I don't think deserves yet another toxic load. From a sort of broad energy policy perspective, New York State just passed a really aggressive climate legislation bill called the CLCPA. It calls for literally, I think it's 100% renewable energy in the electrical generation sector by 2040. This facility that Danskammer is trying to build will be permitted to run until 2057. So it's functionally and legally a sort of awkward precedent to set. So, but anyway, I could go on and on about the particular site. Dutchess County, Ulster County, Orange County, and Putnam County will all be receiving sort of the collective air pollution and air emission impacts. We're talking about a lot more methane, a lot more benzene, a lot more ammonia coming from this facility. We're expecting about a 10-fold increase in air pollutants. And this community, Dutchess County, from the waste incinerator in Poughkeepsie, as well as existing power plant facilities, already gets a D rating from the American Lung Association. So Hudson Valley, although it is very beautiful, is considered one of the 10 most polluted, sort of airsheds in the United States. So I really don't think we need another power plant. So anyway, questions? Sorry, that was a lot of information very quickly, but.
Do you know the structure on the rate? It's like an enterprise, the Public Service Commission encourages them to come in, and the one that's there now, the peaker.
Yeah.
And the ratepayers actually pay a premium on their utility bills to pay them not to operate. They actually make, I think, $28 million a year to do nothing.
A year.
Yeah. And then they got a property tax, they got a pilot, which is a big reduction in their property taxes.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good point, and we just had a meeting last week with Congressman Delgado, and it's something that he's taken issue with. They're receiving, those two things would be fossil fuel subsidies. They're subsidies for fossil fuel projects. At this juncture, at this moment when the science says, we're pretty clear we need to be transitioning. So that's the capacity payments you were talking about.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, you would understand this better than me, but we're feeding the beast down south because they have produced like something like 40% of their power needs in the metro area, and so they incentivize us to burn natural gas down by the river and reopen these plants, or open up a Cricket Valley, or
that's what explains Cricket Valley.
Bring these more abundant
CPV.
plants back to firing them up,
and I think
it's kind of a strange system.
I'm totally pro energy development. I'm not like a Luddite. I think there's obviously a lot of work to be done. New York State is big up here and small down here, but has a lot of people down here and a few people up here. So renewable energy generation happens up here. What we need are, the penetration of battery storage facilities all throughout the Hudson Valley. Dan Scammer, if they moved, 200 feet up from the river and they built on their 118-acre site a battery storage facility, I would be here saying, please pass a resolution in support of Dan Scammer. But this is one of those opportunities for you to kind of help steer energy policy in the direction of something good.
Do you know how New York is part of the RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Initiative? How does this fit in with that? Because I thought that the quotas were supposed to be going down over time. I'm surprised there's enough headroom to build another plant.
And someone else maybe knows more about carbon price or the RGGI system than I do. Sadly, if you look at the real air emissions in New York State since the implementation of RGGI, they've actually increased. So I've come to a place where I think the RGGI system, as good as it is, and as good it is as a funding mechanism for alternative proposals, it doesn't actually have a substantial decrease on real emissions. They would be subject to it, but we are still subsidizing fracked gas power plants. It's just the governor, as much as he's done really good things with the CLCPA and with the clean, and with the number of air emission standards and things like this, he is still doing something else with his other hand. So we have to be pressing on him to work holistically.
What is the impact on the river?
So there is one very positive impact on the river, which is the new facility. Although, you could barely say it's positive because they haven't committed to taking down the old facility. So let's say Dan Scammer does their due diligence as a good corporate partner, and they take down the old facility, which is a water cooling. It's a river water cooled system, basically. So they use river water at the existing facility to cool the reactors. I mean, not the reactors, but the generators. And that not having that would have positive impacts on the marine ecosystem, or on the river estuary ecosystem. But we stand in a coalition with Scenic Hudson, Clearwater, Riverkeeper, who are up front. I'm going up to the governor's office tomorrow and speaking beside Riverkeeper and Scenic Hudson in opposition to this, because I think the short term, we myself and those organizations included would say another 5 years of running this old dirty plant as a peaker facility, no matter how dirty it is much better than building a brand new facility to run for another 30 years as a base load. And the thing about an air-cooled generation system is it's a condensate system, so you still actually have to get water from somewhere. And in their executed stipulations, they've put in a filtration system that filters out PFAS and PFOA. This is getting into the weeds a little bit, but those are the things that are contaminating the Newburgh water system. So there is some anxiety in the community of Newburgh that Dan Scammer actually wants to go into some sort of relationship with the city to take city drinking water to cool at their new facility, which again, I think from a public water perspective, doesn't really seem right to me, so.
So you have two asks for us,
Two asks.
right? One is to pass a resolution, which obviously we can't do this evening because we don't have a resolution drafted for the village of Rhinebeck, right? The second ask is to sign a letter to send to the governor, correct? That we probably, if the board is approved, we can do, right away. But it's up to the board and the board to vote. I'm looking at this very long list of people who have already signed on with that letter. All of our neighboring communities and Ulster County, Dutchess County have signed on to send that letter to the governor. My ask to the board is, does anybody have any reservations about not doing the second ask this evening and signing on with the letter send to the governor about Dan Scammer? Any discussion?
I think we gotta stop building fossil fuel plants, so yes, willing to sign.
Sounds like there's some urgency to get the letter, that portion of what the mayor is describing to you as soon as possible.
We actually will be delivering it tomorrow, so I can add your names.
So I'd like to make, any other discussion?
No.
If not, I'd like to make a motion that we, as the village board, take an environmental act this evening to sign on this letter, to send to the governor to voice our opinion about Dan Scammer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstain? So carried.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And I will send you resolution language from other communities for you to consider in workshop.
And then we can work on that on the side.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Andrew, when you do send it, can you CC it to me as well, please? Thank you.
Next on our agenda is a presentation by Ty and Bond. Aaron is going to, I think Brandy's going to run the controls, and Aaron's going to speak, right? So,
Yes.
We've had discussions previously. At our last monthly meeting, we discussed, how the media filters and all that kind of stuff can handle the inflow, right?
Correct.
But we had some questions coming out of that.
Yes.
And the result of those questions were basically, how do we right-size the plant, to be able to compensate the village for what this project could potentially use, correct?
So, yes, in summary, what I want to talk, as you recall, last month, we gave a relatively brief synopsis of the evaluation that was completed in light of the potential Grassmere project. And so we're going to touch upon a very quick summary of that and the results
Okay.
of that, as well as some of the questions that had come up that were oriented towards plant capacity and how to address that.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we have not seen this presentation.
No,
right?
no.
So this is all new news to all of us. So you, the public, are seeing it at the same time we're seeing it. So please bear with us if we ask a lot of questions.
So what I'm going to recommend, Gary, is that just because some of these slides build upon each other, is that let me just get through them. It's not,
Okay.
well, I don't know that I've got a 5-minute timer on me, that it's pretty succinct in a step through, and then let's do our questions once we've absorbed it, if that's all right with everybody, because they do build upon each other. So just as I was saying, so I'm Erin Moore from Ty and Bond, and with me is Brandy Nelson, also from Ty and Bond. She's driving and has we've both worked a bit on this project. So the Grassmere project, as most are familiar, is a potential development project that's just outside the village. And the main question of consideration that this is addressing is the proposed flow is 70,000 gallons per day. Can the existing Village of Rhinebeck wastewater treatment plant handle that flow and treat it? And if not, what improvements are needed? And so an evaluation in light of this question was prepared. And the results of this evaluation was the piece of the puzzle, that piece of the treatment plant that is insufficiently sized is the media filters. And our estimated cost to improve those filters was $480,000. There are other analysis that involve water and wastewater that Ty and Bond, we were asked to take this portion of it, but the Grassmere project team themselves, they're addressing the other questions. And that's the collection system, the drinking water system. The town of Rhinebeck is leading the questions for evaluation on stormwater. And they're also the lead agency in regard to environmental impacts, but the village is an involved agency under the seeker process. So from the evaluation, at this point, what we've assumed moving forward as far as the Grassmere project responsibility is the capital cost for the necessary improvements to the treatment plant, those filters I mentioned, and then also based on, and this is our understanding based on a previous recent project, the Garden project, where the developer addressed the capital costs, and then also the out-of-village sewer use fee is 1.5 times the in-village sewer use fee. So as we go on, some numbers you see are based on those assumptions. So in doing the plant analysis, the evaluation, there are two main drivers to if the plant can handle flow. And that's the average daily flow the plant sees and the peak hourly flow the plant sees. The average daily flow recorded for the existing plant is 135,000 gallons per day, and that's the monthly average. However, we've been reviewing the past year of data, but at the very end of this year in 2019, the Mirbeau Spa opened. So we have not had sufficient months of their discharge. When they approached for their project, 11,000 gallons per day is what they've estimated. So 1,406,000 gallons per day is 146,000 gallons per day is what we're calling the actual existing flow that accounts that new flow that we don't have a lot of data on at this point, just because of when they started operating. So that flow, average monthly, includes dry days, which 115,000 gallons per day, and it includes sometimes wet days up to 220,000 gallons per day. Now, as we know, stormwater should not be entering the collection system, but it finds its way in through illicit connections or cracks in the pipes, and so on wet days, we see higher flows. And so that all goes into that average flow. That the permitted flow, what New York State says the plant can handle as its peak capacity is 260,000 gallons per day. And then when we take those existing flows and add in, which is that 146, we looked at open parcels that are on the sewer system, already have a pipe out in front and should be served, and we added 4,000 gallons per day to account for those, and then the Grassmere project, bringing a proposed flow to 220,000 gallons per day. And so that was the number for those plant features that deal with average flow. That's what they're based on. Now, other equipment is based on peak hourly flow, and that's a peak, the highest hour that occurs, that the plant sees, again, over the course of an hour. And we look at that more in gallons per minute. So the existing flow, 278, and the proposed, that's observed at the plant, and then the proposed flow, based on sort of the proportion of that, is 458 gallons per minute. And what we did notice is that these peak flows aren't tied solely to wet weather days. So it's not really driven by wet weather, these peak hours. It's driven by different activities and that go on in the village. So I've done some color coding here. Those items in blue, they are ones that are peak hour driven, and items in green are average daily flow driven. So our headworks grinder, the influent pumps, the screw pumps, the media filters, and the UV units are all driven by peak hour flows. And our clarifier and oxidation ditches, those are primary treatment components, and our solids handling, that's more driven by average daily flows, and those are pointed out in green. So this table, same color coding, is summarizing those flows. So we can see our, in green table, our oxidation ditches, the clarifiers, solids handling, their capacity, if we jump all the way to the right-hand side, they have sufficient capacity even with the proposed flows. However, in our blue table, all of those items we mentioned, you can see I've circled the media filters. Their flow capacity peak hour is 360 gallons per minute, which is under the proposed flow of 458 gallons per minute. So there we have a deficit. And essentially that was the heart of the evaluation, is that would be the item that would need a capacity increase to address the Grassmere flows. So this pretty much is a brief summary of our evaluation. I'm going to move on to items that came up based on this at our last board meeting. So one of the big questions was, we have this flow capacity, it's existing, what's an alternative that we could do with 70,000 gallons per day? We have residential services that are in the village boundary but are not served by the sewer system. So this is a comparison of costs and revenues based on those two analyses. So starting with the title under Grassmere, 70,000 gallons per day. The village capital cost, that's a cost, again, we assumed based on the garden, the same assumptions that the gardens development was used, that there wouldn't be a capital cost borne by the village, and thus there's no debt service by the village. Now, the 1.5 times the typical sewer rate is $20.25 per 1,000 gallons, and that's just over $500,000 a year annual income from that 70,000 gallons per day of additional flow. So that's a total increase in annual revenue, as there's no debt service from that. Now, in comparison, we looked at, and the discussion was, well, what if we serve additional residential services within the village? So to do apples to apples here, how do we get to 70,000 additional gallons per day? So the village would have to take on this filter upgrade, because regardless if the flow is coming from Grassmere or from residences, we still need to upgrade the filters. However, the far greater cost is the collection system. You need nearly 10,000 feet of 8-inch gravity sewer to get 182 services, which will get us to 70,000 gallons per day. So that's $4.7 million of collection system construction to get that flow to the plant. So that results in a debt service to the village of about $300,000 annually. Now, those are in-system users, so they pay $13.50 per 1,000 gallons, which would result in about $345,000 of annual income. So $344,000 of annual income, $300,000 of debt service. The additional revenue in the village is about $45,000. So that moves on to then both of those 70,000 gallons per day substantially now have taken up quite a bit of the plant capacity. Now, what if the village wants to increase their plant capacity? We did a rough analysis based on the last plant upgrade. Used those costs and escalated to say, okay, if we wanted to upgrade overall the plant, not just this one feature that wouldn't be able to provide service to Grassmere, but the overall plant. So about 2.6 million is what we think is appropriate for that at right now today's construction costs. Again, very preliminary analysis. So looking at the Grassmere flow path, plant upgrade, that's a cost to be borne by the village. Plus, now, if you want to serve those same folks that you served in the other analysis, $4.7 million of collection service, to do the collection system upgrade. So that's debt service of $420,000. Now, from the Grassmere project, the annual income is $517,000. So that means you could serve those additional 182 service connections, folks, and not have an additional cost. That would fund that project, essentially. Moving over to the new residential services path, you still need to do the plant upgrade, but you already did the collection system upgrade in your initial serving, getting the additional 70,000 gallons to 70,000 gallons per day to the plant. So there's a reduced debt service of 148,000 a year, but your additional income is only 45,000, leaving an unfunded $103,000 gap to fund those improvements. So in both scenarios, you've covered, 182 new residences, but the Grassmere project substantially aids in funding that. So I think that was the heart of the question of, do we serve additional folks, or what do we do with our capacity? So this is essentially the financial breakdown and how that impacts the village. So the big question is, though, that's assuming we can expand the plant. Can we expand the plant? So the next limiting component is the oxidation ditches and the clarifiers. They only had 40,000 gallons additional capacity after the Grassmere, assuming the additional 70,000 gallons per day of flow. But the site is extremely limited. So we did a very rough preliminary estimate on just a spatial analysis. Can you fit these components? So the orange line here is the boundary, the property line of the plant. You can see it is filled with components. It is very, very tight. However, it would involve retaining walls and a few other creative things, but you're going to see two different circular structures. One is oblong and one is a perfect circle. But believe it or not, those are both the same treatment process and have the same capacity. So those are both the oxidation ditch clarifier system. So in this case, we've looked at the more oblong clarifier, oblong oxidation ditch, and it has two exterior clarifiers, and said, okay, it will take some arrangement and, again, a retaining wall, I think, but they could physically fit on the plant site. And then we also looked at an alternative layout, which is that the newer units, they combine the clarifier in the middle. So the other alternative would be demolish that oblong system and clarifiers and put two same-sized units exactly where they were. So just answering the feasibility question, could the plant be expanded on given this very tiny little parcel? And it does seem feasible to expand the plant additionally to provide more capacity. Additionally, the question also came up at the last meeting of inflow and infiltration. So as I said earlier, average dry weather flows 115,000 to 120,000 gallons per day. The wet weather flows, like today, I'm sure it was a good day, up to 220,000 gallons per day. So the average is around 135. So that leaves about 15 to 20,000 gallons per day on your average flow. That is obtainable if we could get every bit of stormwater out of the system. But I think it's really important to note there just doesn't seem to be a strong correlation between the wet weather and that peak hour flow. And there's so many pieces of equipment that are based on the peak hour flows. So I think that's just important to keep in mind. So just overall summary, the evaluation conclusions were there is one component of the treatment plant unable to address that flow. It was the media filters. And we've estimated a cost of $480,000 to upgrade those media filters. Based on the Gardens project, the Gardens development, which the capital cost was bore by the developer, and their sewer use fee was 1.5 times the in-village sewer fee. So we believe that's the project responsibility. And as far as plant expansion project financing, the Grassmere project does provide additional annual revenue to the wastewater system. So that is the summary. It's a lot to absorb, but I think that brings us in the full arc to be able to answer any questions.
Very good.
So thank you.
Thanks.
My very first question is, the plant's designed for 260,000.
Yes, as a peak.
Right. So if the village wanted to add 70,000 gallons per day, back to that same number, we wanted to add additional users that would increase 70,000. Even though the plant is designed to do 260, we would have to still put in the media filters.
Absolutely.
To handle that.
Yeah,
So when the plant was, that's fundamental to me, because that's saying when the plant was designed, it was not designed to handle 260,000 on the intake side.
So you are permitted so there's what your permit says.
Right.
And then what your plant is supposed to do on average, but then we have these individual components of equipment. And boy, I would love massive amounts of data to start trending these things, but all of the treatment plant data is on paper circle charts. So you should see my desk, I have a stack this high. That's just, a stack this high is just 1 year of data. So unfortunately, I can't have my massive Excel spreadsheet so I can start looking for these trends, because the 400, it would be interesting when the last design and the last project went through compared to when the 400,000 gallon per day peaks happen. But really, certain equipment, you look at that peak hour, and other items, including how the plant is permitted, is going to be based on that average monthly flow. So if you saw 500,000 gallons per day for an hour, your filters wouldn't be very happy, but you wouldn't violate your permitted flow. So you want, as an engineering, how equipment is supposed to run, and obviously you don't want to violate what your DEC permit stands. But there is a difference in how each of these guidance and how the different components are rated. One can only, I have not been able to go back and look at when the plant upgrade was designed, what the peak hour flows the plant was experiencing at that time. That really is what the designer would have looked at to see where you are.
So one more question that I have right now is, if we were to add just the media filters, does that change the classification or certification of our plant? Today we're certified at a level 2. We're a 2A.
No, same equipment.
So, but that certification is based on equipment, not on flow. 2A versus 3A is based on the type of equipment you're using, not solely on capacity. or
Well,
flow.
you would be well suited to handle these peak hour conditions, but your overall flow capacity rating wouldn't change.
I
so
think I have a different question.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, Aaron.
No, but for the operator, it is what's your plant rated for. And it
Right.
wouldn't, so when the rating is based on flow, which there are categories of equipment, treatment processes, and flow, it's gonna go back to that permit, and you're not going to be permitted for any more flow after the filter media upgrade.
Would the DEC add additional points to our upgrade with the additional media filter?
I don't think with an additional media filter, we would have to look at at a comprehensive plant upgrade. But that's a great question, and we can verify
And
that.
that's my fundamental question. Would we go from a 2A to a 3A just by adding the media filters?
That seems very unlikely to
Okay.
me, but I would love to
Right,
make
because
sure.
that means something to us, because that changes the certification of our plant operator and.
100%, no, and I understand your concern. But I don't have the list in front of me, but I'm familiar with the list.
Okay.
And and I don't know if you're thinking of, there is a thing on the list, and it is a filter, but it's the like RO times membrane filtration. That is a very complicated process, and if you have a plant with membrane filtration, it usually can kick your operator up. This is your rapid dual media filters. They're very commonplace, and I can't imagine, and you already have them.
Right.
So then the next question would be flows. And considering you're not changing, this upgrade we're recommending addresses your peak hour flows, but wouldn't change the overall rated capacity of your plant. It would be challenging to imagine their route towards that upgrade in
I got it.
operator class.
Thank you.
Aaron, first of all, thank you. Very sharp, precise presentation. If I understood you, the 70,000 gallons of capacity, if deployed to the residential base of customers, or creative residential base of customers, 182, was that the number?
Yeah, so I assumed, based on just my walks around, that it's about average of 3.5 bedrooms per house, in sort of the direction that's unsewered. Now, that, I have to assume something.
Right.
You don't have a so forgive me for, what I've observed, and I had 3.5 bedrooms per house, equals 100, and at 100, which is kind of a conservative number, 110 gallons per day per bedroom gets us to 70,000, which is 182.
So what we can certainly say is that a lot of people wouldn't be served in the village.
Oh yeah, I just tried to get to
Yeah.
70 to be able to provide that apples to apples, and that price tag there's a lot of pipe to go in the ground
Right.
to accomplish that.
Thank you.
But it could also be used for, if there were some multifamily affordable housing, then the developer would do the infrastructure,
Oh, absolutely.
plumbing.
Yeah. The
So
question
we
that was
might-
brought up last time was more specific to serving existing homes in the village. So
Like
I was
if we went
trying
down South Street or something.
Yeah, so I was trying to be specific to that question, to that analysis. But absolutely, if there's a situation like this where there's a project, in the past, that's how you've approached it, is that developer is responsible for these different costs.
I mean, the way the gardens was basically, they did not create a footprint. They didn't take up capacity by doing because they upgraded the plant and then the bond was created and then, so that's kind of where I'm at. I don't really want Grassmere to use all of our capacity. I'd have to look at your PowerPoint thing and study it. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, so. But
There's still the fundamental reason that we as a village cannot take our excess capacity that we have now and give it to somebody outside the village. You can't just say, okay, we'll hook you in, right? Because that's not allowed to do.
well, that's what I'm getting at.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's just a fundamental thing. We cannot just say, here, we'll hook you in. Like Maribel, they hooked in without an upgrade. They're part of the village. It was analyzed
This
as
is
part of being in the village
extraterritorial.
and inside. This is outside the village, so it takes on a different dynamic in terms of that cost. So I think we're saying the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
Did you work on
Yeah.
the gardens agreement at all, the Rich?
yeah.
You did, okay.
The salvaging agreement, the one that, that bailed out the original agreement, yes.
So I think the thing where we need to get to is, what do we have to do to the plant as a physical thing, right? And then what is the cost that we now push back to the developer to be able to do that? So it's still two.
Or we
there's
would
still
do
two
it and then, we would do it and then get a bond and then it would be
Right.
secured by a letter of credit.
And it could be operational expenses, just like the way the garden is running now.
I mean,
For now. It doesn't have, I guess my point is, we don't have to do.
operational and maintenance would, be fee-based moving forward. It's the plan upgrade that I'm,
Yeah,
concerned about.
in other words, we don't have to do everything before we say hook up. We can say phased approach, hook up with an agreement that we're doing this next phase, and that becomes then an expense that we carry.
But I don't know if they're doing phases.
Well, I don't,
Yeah, the
no, I'm not
70,000
talking about their phase, I'm talking about our phase. She just said we have enough with the media filters to absorb their capacity, their outflows. But we have to do this initial upgrade to the media filters to be able to do that, all right? That's phase one for us, the village. But phase two of that for the village is, that doesn't cover, how do we sell this capacity to the developer? And that's really what we're doing,
Well,
whether it's an operational
I
expense.
still want that 70,000 in
In your bank.
the bank.
I agree with you. You and I are on the same page.
So what you're
Exactly.
talking about is then we would do the plant upgrade.
We could do, if we use the gardens as an example, sorry, I don't mean to ignore in the audience. If we use the gardens as an example, right, the village took out a EFC loan for $1 million, whatever, right,
Yes.
Karen? And that $1 million then was used to upgrade the plant, and then the developer is paying that loan. So, phase one, developer pays to do the media upgrades. Phase two, developer pays for the cost of coverage of the loan to do that expansion, so we keep the 70,000 in the bank.
That's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at too.
Right.
That's exactly where I'm at.
But I have a question about the odor, like now that we're increasing, we already sort of have an issue over there with the, I mean,
we've talked
bigger
about-
plant, bigger odor, or is this gonna be I mean, I don't know how it works.
It's a relatively similar odor production. We've talked to Brian to try to get a sense of exactly when that occurs, but it's still an issue that needs to be resolved, but
Brant, actually,
$70,000 gallons.
Brant,
Or-
trustee Nunecker is
Yeah.
correct. We've had this ongoing issue with the odor, but I actually have what looks like a positive update for the board tonight. And we think that we have identified the source of that odor, separate from the odor that you're going to have in a plant. You and I have talked about, you can't completely eliminate odor. But this particular, I hate to characterize it as additional odor, but, it's something that I've reported on,
Yeah,
for several months now, but I think that we may have had a bit of a breakthrough, we'll see.
yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about the
Is that
general
the
things that
odor?
happen in the summer, like when the
Okay.
breezes come from the south. So it'll be the same, it'll be worse?
I mean, it's associated more with the solids management than the flows, necessarily the flow. For instance, when you get high flow on a 220,000 gallon per day, you could have more odor or less, and it all depends on the temperature of the water coming in. So if the stormwater is kind of mellowing you out that day, that's good. However, if it creates a thermal shift and the clarifier sludge
There's all
comes
sorts of
up,
stuff
now you
going
got odor. So it's just difficult to, it's not that type of relationship necessarily, that more flow equals more odor. We definitely got to have solids management, that's important.
Brent, the odor I think you're talking about is a contributing supplier that needs some maintenance issues or a little bit more of a maintenance control, a neighboring distributor. So that's kind of like the odor I think you're talking about. It's not our general run-of-the-mill odor. That's been pretty controlled. So I think we might have hit the source of some complaints.
Okay.
So, the last time we spoke, there was a schedule, right? One second, right? Victoria, I'm addressing Jonathan Mensch, the developer right now. And Victoria, if you want to jump in or whatever, I don't care. You're on a timeline.
Yeah, we're on timeline.
And could you just elaborate the board on what this timeline is?
Yeah, well, it's all driven by being under construction by late spring, which is really the number one priority. But to get there, we need to complete the approval process with the town planning board. We've got a meeting with them on January 21st, which is really, in our minds, the sort of I think the final concept review meeting. There's some tidying up to do after that, but the idea would be that by March, we should be through the planning board review process, which would then allow us to start work. We're still doing a bunch of construction documents and things like that, but that will allow us to start work when we want to start work by late spring.
And one of the other things is the seeker,
Yep.
which I think we're all anxious to understand and look at. And even though, and what I see on the charts is the village is a sign off on that seeker, correct?
Yes. If I quickly, I believe the village board's been updated on this, but just to formally, immediately after that meeting, we identified on behalf of the village board, a letter was sent months and months ago to the town requesting to be included, and just at this, so from the applicant's perspective and on behalf of the village, that letter had been sent saying that the village is an involved party and to keep the village updated, and just nothing has been forthcoming. But certainly the village's request on that fact happened very early on and was received, and certainly everyone should be aware that
Yeah, what the planning board's saying is that the information's going to be disseminated to all the involved agencies once they've got a complete application. And that's part of the goal for the January 21st meeting, is to determine that we do have a complete application. And then there's a month for any interested agency to give comment back to the planning board.
And my concern is we get that seeker on January 20th and your meeting is on the 21st. That's not enough time for us to do anything.
No. This is after
Ah.
after that. After the information gets disseminated to the interested agencies, there's then, I believe it's a month. I think a month. So then it's a month to review anything and make whatever comments.
It's also a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation, because they can't complete seeker until they know whether the village is gonna be providing the sewer service or not. Because the seeker review for an on-site septic system is different than seeker review for sending, wastewater to a village plant.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I wanted to get those terms in that letter of intent, just so we had that basic framework of an agreement up front.
Well, but I think I agree with you, but I think that was the next letter that we needed to send to say that we have those terms in place. Before, having seen this information, we need to now draft another letter that says, here's what we plan on doing. So I don't know what the board, I'm just pushing this out to the board as to what we want to do. If we're on, the developer's on the timeline, is there a possibility of doing this phase thing? Because when are you done construction?
We're going to be done with construction in, well, hopefully 18 months from when we start.
All right, so let's just
Say 2 years.
Let's just say 2 years for the
Yeah.
sake of,
Yeah.
so spring of 2020 to the spring of 2022 is when you're going to really need the capacity to come online.
Yeah, and not right away, spring of 2020.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, spring of 2022
2022
is when you need the capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's a 2-year construction timeline.
Yeah.
So if I heard you though, are you looking for the developer to pay the $458 for the media filters, and then in phase 2 to pay for the full cost of a new plant, or just?
The upgrade, yeah.
An
That's
upgrade?
basic, yeah.
And how much?
So that's the question, like,
Is that upgrade?
That's an answer I don't know.
Because,
I-
and then to pay also the 1.5 for O&M, I mean, it almost.
well, that's what it's the same agreement we had with the gardens.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Did
like.
the gardens put out the capital for the, I think it's a little different.
They put the capital out to upgrade the
They
plant.
paid for the upgrade, but here it's a two-piece. All the developer needs is the media filters.
Well, no,
No.
that's to use all our excess capacity.
Victoria, we cannot, as a village entity,
No, I understand.
Transfer that over to the-
Whether you'd be prorating this other expansion in the phase 2 amongst other people who need it as well, or just putting it all on this.
Yeah, because
particular-
we're at a point, honestly, where it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other, just with the media filter. And I'll just tell you guys that cost-wise, we're doing it on site. By the time we run these pipes, and then all of a sudden we're looking at 1.5 times. So there's not a lot of room. I mean, if the idea is that we're going to be spending, I was looking at some number, and maybe I'm off on that, some $2 million number that was associated with a larger plant upgrade. Yeah, I mean, if we're in that kind of ballpark, then we're just not in the same place. So-
Yeah, I think, is that what, I mean, you're the
Well,
person who came with the back of the envelope figure, so.
well, and, you know, we try every time to hit the right mark of what the question is, but I think we have a different question now.
Oh, a
So the
different
question
question.
now is if you use 70,000 gallons per day of capacity, how do you put 70,000 gallons per day of capacity back in the plant? And I do not have that answer, but it is not $2 million.
Karen.
But it's not 480 either, thousand.
It's not 2 million?
No, that would be to, so you've got to, the problem is, you have to do a logical plant upgrade. You can't just have one train that has 130 and another train that has 130 and then add 70. That's not really how one would do this in in an engineering fashion. So if you're going to have one train that's 130 and another train that's 130, then the logical way to upgrade the plant in a comprehensive upgrade is a third train that's 130. That's 50% more than certainly the Grassmere project's asking for.
Yeah, so
But you just wouldn't do,
You can't do a train for 70,000.
That would not be allowed.
That's-
That would not be a prudent way to upgrade your
Right.
plant.
This is where technology is driving the size of the equipment you need to add.
Yeah, I
You
get it.
can't add it in smaller increments. You're kind of limited by what the technology will allow you to add. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's 130 is the smallest. I don't know what that answer
Well,
is, but
it's the way flow
Yes.
flows through your plant. It has to be in a controlled and even split manner, so.
to the clarifiers.
Right, so even though you have two very different shaped objects up there, they actually have the exact same capacity. So if you want a plant with more capacity, the reasonable way to do this is another 130,000 gallons per day.
Which was your picture of the
Yes.
oval?
Right.
Yes, or the two circles, whichever way it gets you from here to
Or
there.
the two circles? I don't remember what that figure was.
No, the next figure.
Could they go right, instead of just doing the media filters now, could they go right to the 130 gallon upgrade and then Grassmere could prorate their portion of that?
That's what we have to decide as a village.
Oh, I was just
Right.
saying if that's even feasible from an engineering perspective, because there's no need for all of that capacity right now.
Media filter has to come first.
The media
Right.
filters.
Here we go.
Media filter first, yeah.
But they have 2 years, so she's asking if we could just go right to the plant upgrade.
Yeah, it would be in all.
But prorate their portion of it.
Yeah,
That's what she's asking. And that's what
Well,
we have,
instead of
and that's what I'm saying, we have to make
instead
that
of doing
decision.
Media filters and then plant upgrade.
Right. I mean, so it's a media filter, and then whatever capacity we put in, your question is, can we prorate that for what the developer needs?
Well, that was one of the questions. is-
Right.
we have to decide whether we want
Yeah.
to expand elsewhere.
I don't think we're in a position to even really keep discussing this, right? I think that we should probably meet as.
Yeah, we should have a workshop on
I
this,
think
or
so.
Yeah.
a
We're
working
not gonna
group or
decide it
something.
tonight.
No.
Sorry, but.
Just one question. The full plant upgrade number that you gave, was that including the new media filter or after the media filter's been installed and then having a new plant on the downstream side of that?
That is there's like 2.6.
You want me to go back to that
It's
one?
an estimate, and does not include the 400,000. So
Okay.
now you're nearly 500, so that's about 3.1.
Okay.
We've gotten quotes on the media filter.
Okay.
The 2.6 is based on the last time you did this upgrade is about $1 million. Inflation, particularly
Right.
concrete costs, have gone very high. And so we have escalated that cost based on the last time you doubled your capacity.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty comprehensive cost because you doubled your capacity. But it's, whoever used the term back of the envelope, that's the right way to explain that 2.6. Is just to give you, this is about the scope of magnitude we think you're going to be looking at to do a third train, essentially
For
a third train.
140,000 gallons.
130.
Another
130,
30.
yeah.
Yeah,
Third
'cause you're at
train.
260 with 2 trains, so it'd be adding a third train.
Third train,
Yeah.
no media filter is 2.6.
Yeah. Oh, back it up.
Right. Want to just ask my first question again. Adding another train of 130 does that change the operation to 2A to 3A? Or is it still just a flow thing?
No, now, we definitely have increased our flow. I'm gonna check on that to make
Okay.
sure we haven't, so we'd go from 260 to 390. I feel like it's a $500,000 and under is the same class, but I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
But
We can do that, though. It's not, it's a possibility.
To go to 3A?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
We were.
I know, but we were incorrectly classified before, is the problem. And it also means that we need to get the certification level of an operator at a 3A.
Yeah.
Right? And whatever additional resources we need to manage a larger capacity plant.
I have the scorecard, we could look it up, it is
Yeah.
a scorecard, and you add your points, and at the end, whatever points you have, that's your, translates to your class operator.
One
Go ahead.
question, just in terms of operating costs, if we add in the extra 70, just say put media filter on, add extra 70.
We
does
can't
that-
add 70.
Can't, right.
We cannot add 70, Rick.
Okay. I'm just curious, if this would be a substantial change in operating costs in terms of media, do we need another person? Do we need?
That's what we just mentioned.
You know,
We have to
so-
look at that whole formula.
Well,
I
as a-
think
as
that's a
a
good idea,
3A.
but I did think about this, an obvious place is if you have a plant that has a, ton of chemical usage. So if you were disinfecting with sodium hypochlorite and then, dechloring versus your UV. But the style of UV you have, the lights are on. It's not because it's a smaller plant, so it's not a turn down unit. The way the ox ditches operate, they're constantly going. So again, while we tried to keep the scope of this evaluation as cost effective and as limited as possible, you don't have heavy chemical usage, which would definitely translate to more flow equals more chemicals used because of the style of treatment. So there wasn't something that I said, oh, we've got to really get this value in here because it will be a huge cost. So there could be some increases, but because of the style of your plant, they're not gigantic.
All right. This is all good information, and thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you all.
But I think
Thanks.
we as a board have to go into a much deeper discussion.
Mhm.
And then the question is, can we go into that deeper discussion and meet their objective of really, you need some sort of answer by the 21st?
Well, yeah, actually, we need to.
That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, because really for us, we're at a breaking point where if we're going to pursue this on-site treatment plant, which based on some of those numbers, it seems more and more likely, then we need to be in a position to just start moving on that. So if we're beneath some there's, I think, some pretty threshold stuff that's we can probably collectively use to make a decision on it. But for us, if we're going to go and go back to Plan A, which was to do this on-site, we need to really start doing that quickly. All that information then needs to go back to the planning board, they need to review it, and we're going to be under the gun and getting that done. I mean, our preference throughout has been to try to work with the village. I'm scared by some of the numbers that I was.
Everything we do is prevailing wage, and you don't have that.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about when
Also.
when we're at the media filter level, between that and running the pipes to Grasmere, we're around the same place as we would be to doing it on site. But if we're looking at funding a significant plant upgrade, then we're just in a very different place. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But if that X funding was operational expense for you afterwards, does that make a difference?
It makes a difference, definitely. It's just an order of magnitude in terms of what the cost is.
Right.
I mean, I'm reacting to
So,
these.
I mean,
total-
one plan is it's all up front.
Yeah.
The other plan is there's a portion up front to get you in, and then there's a portion that becomes,
Yeah, I think the key would be what's that second portion.
I agree.
Yeah, honestly, and that's.
yeah.
It's going to be quite substantial, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I think we can get to pretty quickly. And if the answer is it's going to be quite substantial, then it's probably not going to work. And we're just at a place where we need to know that. And if that's the answer, that's the answer. But I would appreciate it if we could.
If you knew what the-
If we can try to get there as quickly as we can.
All right, so,
Could we
When-
schedule a workshop?
Yeah, and we'd love to be a part of it.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
right, but to get to the workshop, I think we need information, more information than what we have right now. So the issue is, can the engineering firm come back, if we schedule a workshop, what is your turnaround time to tell us, here's that incremental cost to do that upgrade?
So just taking notes on Aaron's presentation and your questions, it sounded like you were looking for the incremental cost for a plant upgrade with the media filter upgrade, but not necessarily expanding the collection system to
Oh, no.
any additional users.
No, we're talking about expanding the clarifiers.
No.
Oh,
Expanding the plant,
Oh,
but not the
yeah,
collection
not the
system.
collectors, correct.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one more
Wait,
part of this,
can I
it's just,
ask one
yeah,
follow-up
of
question?
course.
So.
Might be the same.
The level of cost of the upgrade right now is based on an upgrade that occurred associated with the gardens.
Right.
2015, end of 2000,
No,
No.
It was
I
2007.
forget when it was.
I don't even
It
know.
was earlier
It was
than that.
15.
Yeah, it's older than
It was
that.
much
We're,
older.
we're almost,
Okay.
we're getting to the end of our 20-year bond, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
So,
Late 90s?
yeah.
so I think, but just, so hear me on trying to figure out how much work, if that is one methodology that was quick to do, to really sit down and figure out how could we upgrade this plant? How could all the components fit? That is a larger lift.
That's the question I'm asking.
Okay.
And I
But that's
want to know.
what we want. That's
That's
the
exactly what
level.
I'm asking,
Okay.
and the question is, what is your turnaround time to do that, so that we could schedule a meeting, a workshop, to be able to have that information?
I really think at this stage, it'd be more appropriate to have a high-level planning cost, just to give Jonathan a opportunity for an up or down on whether or not he
Right.
wants to move forward. Because a full plant upgrade cost estimate needs some sort of conceptual design that gets into plumbing and retaining design and, you know, the geotechnical condition out there. That, as Aaron was saying, that's a much bigger thing, you know, so I think we're still at the phase where we want to do sort of high-level planning costs, just to help inform decision-making.
Well, whatever the board thinks that they need to make a decision with.
Well, that's something that has a short time frame. We can turn that around in a couple of weeks, but if it's a whole, you know, planning for a plant upgrade, that is a
got it.
many week.
That was the point that I wanted to just make, Gary, that we are going to need to continue to engage Tig and Bond in this initiative, in this effort, and I don't know what those implications are to the escrow account that, you know, we've set up, John.
Well,
Well,
go ahead,
The
I'm
escrow
sorry.
is supposed to be used for the reasonable cost of assessing whether or not the plant had capacity for this proposed project, which I think we got to tonight with the presentation. You know, respectfully, if you were going to do a full plant redesign, I think that's outside the scope of the applicant's escrow. I mean, a high-level discussion of what the cost would be is one thing, but, you know, doing the pipes and planning that for a village-wide expansion.
But I think we backed it down to doing this, as Brandy suggested,
Okay.
if the board agrees that high level is sufficient for us to have a workshop with.
But on that high level front, it's about $2.6 million. So that gave you 130, sorry, let me go back to my math, thanks, Brandy. Oh, this is real straightforward. 130,000 gallons per day of extra capacity. That is $20 a gallon. So times 70 is $1.4 million of a $2.6 million upgrade is what is the 70,000 gallon per day.
Well, that's for the 70. Doesn't
Right,
covers the developer portion. That would just cover the
be
developer's portion.
That's
that's the
developer.
developer portion,
Yeah.
Right.
which I think is what we were trying to get to.
And wait, does that include the media filters or that's exclusive?
I don't think so.
Well, we're not doing the media
Yeah.
filters.
No, we need to do that.
It was 3.1
So
media
so I think
filters,
we
right?
have to add that into 1.4.
So the media fillers are another 480.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
so now you're
but,
two.
I mean, I think that's a ballpark. When
Right.
you talk about, if I add another 480 on, we're 1.4, 1.6. That's the ballpark, okay?
So you took the full cost, prorated it for 70, added in the media filter. That's what the number represents.
No, I'm confused. I don't think it
That
did.
was the total cost. What the number we just heard was the total cost prorated to the new project, plus 100% of the media filter would be to them, and then we would have the other part of that, you know, like 1 point.
Is that, I mean, is that cost prohibitive,
1.6.
John?
Yeah, it is.
It is, okay, well,
Yeah,
that's.
yeah, I mean, we'll go back and
discussion,
talk
yeah.
about it, but I mean, if that's the kind of place we're at, it's seeming
Yeah.
like it's gonna be difficult.
So what I'm proposing is that additional 1.4 becomes operation expense after the media filters versus upfront capital.
Yeah, so, I mean, what we're looking at, so I just so I understand, it's 1 point, so it's 1 point, it's really 1.9, right?
I think it is.
I had 1.88,
Yeah, yeah,
1.4 plus the 480.
Yeah,
That's what I was,
yeah,
that's where I'm
I
at.
just rounded to 1.9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was proportionally keeping, because while the same discussion we just had, while you don't put a baby media filter in, you put a third media filter in.
So
So
the same principle applies to the media filter.
filter
applies to
as
the rest of
applies
it.
to the rest of the plant. So
Yeah,
we do an
so-
overall upgrade, which is 2.6 plus 0.5, 3.1, divided by 130 times 70. And I think it gets 1.6 and change.
1.6 and change. Yeah.
Right, how much extra capacity does the media filter provide beyond what we're estimating capacity for?
It's in the evaluation, but I don't have that number.
Okay, all right,
I just
so,
wanted them to understand.
Yeah, but it's similar to the entire process, just that's the issue, that's the stop, that's your bottleneck feature that is the issue to accepting.
so I think what I heard from the developer is you're at a decision point, given this high-level number.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly at a decision where we can make a decision as
Right.
to whether it's worth.
So it doesn't behoove, there's no reason for us to meet until we know your decision.
Yeah, whether this is, yeah, that's
Right.
fine, that's fine.
You
Okay.
agree?
Yeah,
Everybody agree with
Does he
that?
have a firm number? What number are you taking home?
We will absolutely put
Yeah.
it, what we just did together,
Yeah,
your math exercise into a letter.
Okay, let us know that number
Because
too.
also, we'll confirm, what that was, that initial $1 million bond is the number for the plant expansion that I'm aware of. We'll confirm that, make sure that's the right number.
Okay,
And it would, one thing that would be helpful is if we're treating this as an operating cost, what the, sort of the likely term of the bond would be, interest rate.
well, I think you can do that. I mean, that's, the interest rates, right? For like an EFC loan.
Yeah, okay.
well, no, we're not gonna be able to, we probably won't get an EFC loan,
Why?
because we were fortunate enough to get,
Because we have one.
because we're lucky to get the one we have.
I didn't think we were precluded from another.
What are we getting these days, like 3.5 or?
I think it's,
you're right, man.
well, right, the initial's 1.2, and then I think it goes to 2 point,
Well, no, I mean, at our borrowing
Oh,
rate,
in
not
our
the EFC
bond.
rate.
yeah, I think it's like 3 to 4. I'm not exactly sure.
So either way, you could plug some numbers in. and
Just
you
say
could
like
do that.
3 to 4 over 20 years, you know.
3 to 4, okay, so that's what we're looking at. Yeah, I was trying to remember if it was an EFC loan at a lower rate, then that would affect.
We probably can't get that because we have to do the grant requests and the,
Well, perhaps a
Certainly.
consolidated funding application, though, because it's public-private partnership.
Yeah,
I mean, that's something to explore, but you wouldn't know until next year.
Right.
yeah, we wouldn't know. until-
it took us 2 or 3 years to get the one that we have, so.
The grant.
But, but also the low interest loan
Right.
too, yeah. It's kind of the same process.
Well, the CFA stuff, I think, starts in July, and then you find out in December. But, I mean, we're still,
Doing July.
we're not finding out. in
Okay.
Yeah.
I still think we're at the same point, Jonathan. We need a comeback from you
Yeah,
to tell us whether you're in or out.
yeah.
Agree? And
I
then
think so, yeah.
if you're in, then we can get together and have working sessions and
We have to
plan something.
decide whether we can pay for that other portion of it.
That's what our working session
Yeah,
would be.
which
That would
is
be a public.
Give me
we
5
would
or
do
6
that.
grand a month, so.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay?
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for such a long discussion, but this is very, very important for us to figure out. All right, next on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody that is here for public comment? Frank, come on up.
Victoria has a baby, that baby hasn't had too.
Yeah. It's her
So I'd
second
like to
kid, I
wish you
think.
all a happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Enjoy your holiday, be safe. I'm Frank Santamarina, I live at 15 Hiley Road, Rhinebeck, New York. First thing I'd like to know is why I didn't get a phone call for an apology. It would have been nice from a board member acting condescendingly toward me.
You know, I wasn't acting condescendingly toward you. I was explaining that the pump during the day pushes the water up into the tank and then it runs down at night. Maybe that sounds corny, but I was actually just telling you mechanically how it worked. And I wasn't being sarcastic and
I
very...
aced 2 of my 5 federal exams in aerospace sciences.
Okay.
I'm pretty well versed
Okay,
on
that's fine.
physics
Yeah.
and how that water comes from the river up to the pump house.
Well, I don't know that. And I didn't know that either, so I was just explaining the process.
Now, if you like, I'd be happy to play what you said because I recorded it.
Okay.
So be careful, okay? Be careful.
So Frank, what are you,
Yeah,
please,
thanks.
what are you here for?
Yeah, you guys have to...
Please?
Well, I didn't.
This is
you see,
the board
and you did it
that he's
again.
attacking,
You
not
did
just
it
me.
again.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
I didn't-
attacking the board and not just me.
I didn't even mention the name,
So-
and you were guilty.
Frank,
Yeah.
Frank, let's
You were
stop,
guilty.
Frank, let's stop with this.
Yeah.
What are you here for? Tell us what you're here for.
That's so funny.
And, come on, Frank,
Yeah, I know.
please.
I'm here because somebody made a decision on their own, because it wasn't in the contract, to cut the trees in front of that tank. Now, what I understand is the excuse was used, well, the trees are falling on a fence. Well, if a tree falls in the village of Rhinebeck, do you cut all the trees down? On the block? I mean, you literally denuded the property. It was wrong. It was really wrong. And one person made that decision, because it wasn't in the contract. Nobody bothered to even think of us. And that's a shame. We're your neighbor. And you just said, oh, let's go up there and make this an eyesore.
All right, so let's address things one at a time, if you would like.
Thank you.
So I would like to turn to our DPW about that decision-making process, right? Could you explain?
Sure. The Department of Health engineer, the regional engineer, Dave Pearson, has always given us annual reports about the Hiley Pump Station. And in each report, there had been a comment about taking down some trees, some vegetation around the reservoir, around the pump house. So the chief operator, with the permission to spend some money up at the Hiley Pump Station, was approved to take down some trees. Didn't realize he was going to take down all the trees, but that's how they all came down.
So the decision was, let's be clear on the decision-making process. Decision was made by the tree person or by?
It was a combination of the chief operator and Dave's tree service, Dave himself. He felt that the trees that they took down were either dead or dying.
And I have pictures showing they were not dead or dying.
All right, so,
Well, also, we were written up that we needed to remove those trees around the
Well,
open
lagoon
reservoir.
were. That's exactly right. I don't disagree with that.
The open reservoir.
Yeah.
I don't mean the
Well-
lagoon.
Well, the open reservoir, it's
Yeah.
referred to as lagoon because it's not used. Okay? The water in that lagoon is not used.
all right, so let's get on, be on a
Yeah.
semantic. So a decision was made, the trees were cut.
Right.
all right?
And it's awful.
And I'm going to tell you that, yeah, we should have notified all the neighbors up there that trees are going to be cut. Unbeknownst to this board, I don't think the board was consulted on that decision. So now we need to rectify it. And I believe there's been a conversation with you to rectify this. Is that correct? Is that what you want?
I got an email.
No, John, have you had a conversation?
Yes, I spoke with.
Let's be real. Let's put it all out on the table. That's what I want to do, Frank. I want to put it all out on the table. There was a
I
conversation.
was off the record with John. I even said I'm off the record because I didn't record it. I record everything.
Well,
All right?
all right. There was a conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I basically explained to Frank that I did speak to the board. We are taking Highly Pump Station serious. We are going to upgrade it in several ways, considering a backup generator, some storage shed. We talked about some low-maintenance ground cover, and then possibly maybe a perimeter, low-growth vegetation, tree, bushes as screening. I don't have the approval obviously yet. We have to do something in the spring. I think I spoke to you, maybe Gary, a little bit about it.
So, yeah, there was a follow-on discussion with
Yeah, I was
trustee
there.
Nuneker and myself
Yeah.
and DPW where we talked about this issue.
Screening on the inside of the
Right, and
fence.
so just, I want to let you know everything, because there's nothing to hide. And in that conversation, we discussed exactly what we want to do something in the spring. And I believe that was communicated, that we really want to get back there in the spring now and rectify this.
Okay.
We don't have a plan of what we're going to do yet.
We'd like to see 20-foot trees put back in the
Well-
ground there, in front of
Well,
the,
Frank,
in front of the
we'll get a
town.
plan.
Yeah,
And we'll.
that's what we'd
And we'll
like.
present.
The neighborhood would like that, because that's what was there.
And who are you,
There's this beautiful,
who
you
are
guys
you-
are familiar with Winnicke Land Trust, right?
Frank, who are you talking to in the neighborhood, just so I know that we can include everybody? No, I want to make everybody aware. So who are you also communicating with?
I am not going to disclose the families. If they wanted to let you know who they were, they would be here.
Okay,
They
so
don't
you have no
need-
problem, if I reach out to them?
I have no problem you reaching out to anyone, Gary.
Very good, thanks.
You guys should have done it a couple of years ago when we had the goat issue, when everybody was contacted and nobody was. So I'd be happy for you to call
I
now.
think we will.
Here's Winnicke Land Trust, right? Nice picture on the back. Now all those people are going to go to the top of the hill, and what are they going to see? Before their eye was taken away. Now they're going to see that tank. That's for you. I'm a donator to them.
So we're coming back with a plan, right? We've agreed to do that,
Okay.
okay?
I hope you'd keep me in the loop so I can let everyone know what's going on.
Well, I think we'll reach out to the community at large.
Yeah.
So we're not depending on one person to communicate. I think it's up to the municipality to communicate this. And we'll invite them all for a meeting for the plan, okay?
That's wonderful. And lastly, whenever someone has to justify what they've done, it usually means they're wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Anybody else? In terms of- Susan, come on up.
I just wanted to say that poor John, thank you for rectifying everything I asked for at the last meeting. The leaves were cleaned and the potholes been filled and.
Don't say poor John. All this stuff rolls off my back. So
I know, but
thank you,
I
though.
gave you a hard time last time, so I just
That's
wanted to
all
say
right.
thank
It's
you
all
for
good.
following up with everything. I appreciate
We'll
that.
fix it. We'll fix whatever's out there.
Any other public comment? All right, having no other public comment, we're going to move on to the department reports. Treasurer's report.
Okay, the treasurer's report is for the period ending November 30th. The tax collector account ended the month with $666,105.17. The general fund ended the month with $129,564.32. The water fund ended the month with $359,912.51, and the sewer fund ended the month with $506,437.29. The New York class investments in each fund yielded an average interest of 1.61% last month. Vouchers presented for payment in the general fund total $264,127.22. In the water fund, $62,484.15. In the sewer fund, $58,965.55. We have a payment for the escrow gardens of $279.25. We have a payment for Grasmere from ESCO for $7,342.50. We have the ADA lift bill for fixing the railing, and one other bill for $11,275.32. And we have bills for the water main project totaling $161,432.67. And we have a payment for the a payment towards the grant of the EV charging station of $7,000. An operating statement is provided for the revenue and expenditures through December 10th. The water and wastewater billing and adjustments have been reviewed and signed off by the Water and Wastewater Department liaisons and are presented for authorization.
I'd like to approve the water adjustments as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
And I would like to make a motion to approve the wastewater figures presented here this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried.
Okay, and I just have a few budget amendments. In the general fund for the central communication fees non-employees, which is over budget, I'm requesting an increase of $3,000, and I'm requesting to take that from the data processing equipment line item, which the equipment needed has already been purchased, and there's remaining funds in that line item. For the records management grant, there's just $383 that was over budget because it crossed fiscal years. I'm requesting to take that out of contingency. And in the sewer fund, the sewer equipment, I'm requesting to increase that by $28,500 and use those funds from the capital sewer account. And that is for the new concrete apron in front of the bay doors.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the budget amendments.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried.
Okay, and then finally, the budget for 2020-2021. I just want to, the budget process will begin in January with individual department meetings being scheduled. Prior to that, the department heads will receive a current year-to-date report and start evaluating their future budget needs. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Karen. All right, next is the police report. The police report, total of incidents in the town was 20, total of incidents in the village 101, total tickets in the town 27, total tickets in the village 37, total arrests 2, total number of accidents 13. So extra coverage was provided for brush cleanup on 11/13, predominantly on Montgomery Route 9. We need police support to handle that, and the Rhinebeck soccer parade and turkey trot. So with additional police coverage. Moving on to the court. I'm going to get there. Hang on. No, I get that. October court summary. Tickets were completed both from court sessions and mailed in for the month of 174. Revenue from the state was $6,284. Okay. Fire department. Give me 1 second. And have that one open. Okay, there, a second.
You want to just read it?
No, have it.
Just
Thank
print
you.
it out.
Fire Village Board for December 10th, 2019. For each month, for the month of November 2019, there were a total of 82 calls. There were 19 fire calls, 56 EMS calls, 7 motor vehicle accidents. The fire department responded for mutual aid to other departments outside of the village 8 times. We had 21 members on standby from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for Santa Claus event, and the department handled 1 EMS call and 1 lost child during that event. Thank you. Building, planning, and zoning, I don't believe we have a report for tonight. Building, planning, and zoning, correct, Pat? Highway department. Do you have anything from highway?
I do have a report. Catch basin and repair and maintenance has been completed on Knollwood and Arnett Drives. The guys are now doing leaf pickup for November. And then, of course, beginning with the snows, in December, they've been out plowing and salting. The leaf truck was dispatched down to Rhinecliff to help the town with leaf pickup. The highway department was also involved in Santa Claus preparation and placing the barricades and getting the village all spruced up ready for that. The work on Livingston Street has been ongoing, and Mike asked me to mention that Welsh Sanitation dropped a dumpster here for us to pick up the garbage after Santa Claus, and they did not charge us for it. So that was sort of a gift to the village from that. There has been a bit of an issue with some of the leaf piles were still out when the first snow fell. So until either the snow melts away or we get a solid freeze, it's going to be hard to pick up the last little bit. We can't do much about the timing of the snow and the leaves. So,
Is there any opportunity to get out now?
Yes.
Yes.
We won't be able to tackle it with the vac truck, but we're gonna go back to the tooling backups.
Scooper, right,
Yeah,
right.
so.
Mike said he either needed it cleaner, wetter, or drier, or solid.
Yeah, we're gonna approach it this week, so we'll see what kind of conditions we're up against. So,
Okay, very good. That's this week?
yeah.
So additional leaf and brush pickup. I think this will be our last, is this our last?
I don't think we should put it out. This is just to tighten up what,
Just clean up what's there.
clean up what's there,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
We
don't
don't want to see
think-
anything additional on
Mike,
there.
if you didn't let me, I wanted to finish that. We're done
Yes.
with leaf and brush pickup after just the cleanup that we're gonna do. So, am I correct in saying there's no more?
Correct. No more material should be deposited on the street at this time. We're just trying to pick up what's out there currently.
Right.
If they can get the leaves out to the street by the time we get there. I know, but I'm just saying, we're not gonna not pick them up, but
Right.
after we do a full, I would say after whatever we can tackle this week and whatever we can get to next week, that'll be it. So it's really, end of next week is really when we're gonna put everything away, so.
So
Okay.
you're talking,
Very good.
you're talking the 20th,
Yeah, but don't hold me to it.
Weather dependent.
right?
Yeah.
All right, water department. Is that it? I'm sorry, is that it for highway?
That's it for highway.
Water department.
Okay. So we had high water, raw water turbidity, meaning churned up water from the river on the 4th of, that would be the 4th of November. So they worked overtime for 2 days, working around the clock to get the plant back to normal operation, because it's difficult to treat the water. We went through a lot of the flocking agent, which is what it becomes the alum additive that the coagulant that we add, and so we had to have an emergency delivery. That was probably the big event. We did obviously remove trees from around the storage tank. We talked about that. Tomorrow we're going to have a site visit from engineers for the bid package to do the analysis for the Dutchess County water and wastewater feasibility study to talk about plant operations for the water and the wastewater department from 10 to 2. So I know you know about
Yes.
that. The water line project is well underway, and they started. Well, they scored the pavement last week, but they started trenching, and they've already done, what, 250 feet of pipe today?
They're averaging 234 feet per day.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
And,
They're
the,
exceeding their average.
yeah,
they said 150 to 180 feet.
Significant.
So they are really moving. I mean, I sat there for 45 minutes and they did 40 feet, so.
Yeah.
I mean, the soil conditions are ideal.
Ideal.
you know.
And that went into their bid because they didn't have to worry about any special bedding or anything. They're actually bedding the pipe in the native soil that they pull out. So, because there's not even any rocks in it so far.
No.
They ran into 2 storm drains. So I don't know if this is something we should talk about because they were not in good condition, whether we want them to
I think we should talk about these.
replace these things.
Right, because there's gonna be more. We know where they are, right?
Yes.
One of them was not marked.
Oh.
The primary artery storm drain was not identified.
Yeah.
That one was in the worst condition and had the most length. All the
Of course.
laterals are pretty much identified, we know where they are. The condition of each one that they come across needs to be replaced, but instead of piecemealing it, they're gonna give us a price to do all of them at some point.
But it would be when they're doing the service lines, because right now they're
Yeah.
just doing
Ah,
they come back and do the laterals later. So that would probably come out of it would come out of the general.
They're gonna
fund.
give us a price for it.
Yeah.
should we get another price? I mean, this is something that we.
They can
want
only
to go
do
out for
it, I
bid
think.
for?
Right now, I think they're, I think it's a sole source maybe, or no?
I don't think it's a sole source, other than I don't know.
It would be considered a specialty kind of service, because they're there with all
Is it gonna be like
mobilized.
Just want to make sure that we're,
would it be a change work order to the job that they're doing?
One's stormwater, one's,
I don't even think we can charge the water department for
No, I'm just
The water
I'm just
budget.
trying to.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I don't know if you would,
comes out of wastewater, right?
it'd come out of, no, it'd come out
it's
of
a separate
highway.
fund.
Oh, yeah.
It comes out of highway.
If they do it, if they're gonna be doing it in spring, are they doing it now or in spring?
No, they would do it now,
Oh, they would
when
do
they
it.
do the service laterals.
Do we know do we even know what we're dealing with in terms of dollar amount?
No, not yet.
All right,
So you're talking about running a new trunk line and then all the laterals to the catch basins?
no.
I think they're all
No, so for
independent.
the most part, our storm drains are for the most, dead ends, they just connect to each other, and that's pretty much it. They're not all interlinked.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, putting in a new pipe from A to B, right across the street. So that's kind of what you're looking at.
Okay.
So they're gonna identify what they come across, they're gonna keep close notes and just let me know at some point what kind of numbers they have and what it would cost.
Okay.
So is it something maybe we could use chips for, if that's why you didn't know, I mean.
I
our
forgot
next
the rule
round
on
of
chips with-
comes-
Well, first, I don't,
Capital improvement, we're
Are we
allowed
gonna-
to use it.
we're gonna get an estimate,
Yeah.
right?
I think chips has to be part of a road upgrade. But
Yeah, I don't know if they- I don't know what-
We ran
if
across
they
that
would
issue
cover
before,
it.
but we could look into that.
Well, the plan is to upgrade these roads after we're done. Correct?
Right.
So,
We can do it later. They're marked. We're marking where they are, so we can do them later.
no, I mean, if we did it now, could it be included in the upgrade that we're gonna try to plan for
I don't
afterwards?
know.
We need a cost, an estimate, and then B, we gotta decide where it comes from and how we're gonna pay for it, right?
Okay.
Other than that,
It's a go.
yeah.
I mean, they're doing great, I mean, they were held back a week because of Santa Claus, and they've already caught up in time-wise. With the holidays, you're talking, I think their deadline was January 24th to have Livingston done, but the rate that they're going at, they'll get it done sooner than that. So I think we'll be okay.
Which raises the question, should we have another information for Chestnut Street? We were doing this by street. Should
Correct.
we, sometime early January, plan another information session?
Yeah.
I would think
Yeah.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we set that date now?
You want to give it one more week just to see how far they get?
Well,
Yeah.
we're not meeting, we'd have to,
Oh,
That's true.
Oh, okay.
The meeting in January would be the 14th, so you're talking the first full week, which would be the week of the 6th, if you want to have it before our meeting.
January 6th?
If they're moving at that rate, I think the earlier the better. Would you agree, John?
Yes.
Well, Tuesday the 2nd, or Thursday the 2nd, there's court. Friday, you could have it. The 3rd,
Friday the 3rd?
That's not a good day. Fridays
Okay.
are hard for people.
the 7th is planning board, the 8th is court, but it's an early court, so they might be done. The 9th and the 10th are available,
9th is Thursday?
Thursday the 9th.
That's good.
Pencil it in, yeah.
6 o'clock?
I think we should pencil that in.
Let's get going at 6 though?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same time as last time, seemed to work
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good time.
I can't be here, so maybe somebody else can.
So information sharing for Chestnut on
Thursday,
January
January 9th,
January 9th.
at 6 o'clock. I have class.
I did have a request that there were some people on Livingston Street that didn't receive our notifications, even though we went door to door on doing this. Is there any other way that we can make sure that everybody's aware? One suggestion was we make up a sign and put it out on the street, to do this, to make sure that people can come, are aware of the meeting. Because not everybody gets the emails, not everybody gets our distribution, and going door to doors didn't seem to work for everybody. So what is the thought about maybe having a information sign?
I wonder if you can use the digital road sign, but not the big ones.
Yeah.
Sheriff ones.
Oh, can that be printed on it? Yeah, the radar one?
I don't think you can
I'll
put
look
all that
into it.
information.
They just put,
Just
yeah,
report,
simple
distribution,
messages on there.
Project meeting.
You gotta keep it real simple though. It'll be from.
Meeting January 9th, 6 o'clock.
Then
Water.
You'll have everybody.
What?
You'll have everybody then.
Yeah.
That's true.
We'll talk about it.
All right, let's put a
Yeah.
plan. I
We'll
think,
figure it out.
I just want to get some more information out to everybody to eliminate any confusion and so everybody knows what's going on.
So then we do have an invoice for $132,000. And this has been approved by our engineering. I'm going to read you a paragraph here. At this time, the contractor is fully mobilized at the site with all tools and equipment. Performance and payment bonds and insurance certificates were submitted prior to contract execution. The majority of submittals and shop drawings for construction materials have been submitted, reviewed, and approved. Approved materials have been ordered and are in the process of being delivered and stored. Survey and stakeout of the proposed work has been completed. Saw cutting of the pavement, which we saw, is commenced in early December. Water system installation along Livingston Street commenced on December 9th. And of course, now we know they've finished about 230 feet of plumbing. So $132,000, $132,097.50. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
A second. But I'd like to have some discussion.
Well, it's been approved by Stantec.
Right. So, but we don't pay it until EFC, the loan pays it, correctly? It doesn't come out of us?
So it's part of the 161,000 that I reported, the 132 is
Right.
part of that. So the board's going to authorize it this evening. Tomorrow, I'm going to prepare a payment request for EFC. If they get it by 12 o'clock noon on Friday, they'll give us the funds the following Thursday. So we're kind of getting into a system of how we're going to be doing this. And we will not send out those payments until we receive the payment from EFC next Thursday. So right now, we're at 161, but when we start to do much larger chunks of money, it's going to be, crucial that we get the money from EFC before we release payment.
But that's our process.
Correct.
And that changes when we exhaust the 1.1 million.
Right.
And that's my question, and you'll see it tomorrow, Brent, but my question to Douglas Goodfriend, our bond counsel, is should we be going forward with borrowing the additional part? I know we did the resolution authorizing it, but we didn't actually go to EFC to borrow the additional 1.7 million that brings us up to that 5,507,000. So I'll be working on that. I'll work with Brant, I'll work with the bond council, and I'll be consulting with Stantec on that.
And the critical thing is our cash flow,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So.
'Cause
we
these
need to
guys
manage
are-
that. If they're 250 feet a
they're-
day,
yeah.
we'll.
Lot of
go-
invoices.
We'll go dry.
So
Right.
that brings up my question, is that, are we gonna have to have workshops every time we approve an invoice? Because we're in mid-month. If we get an
That's a good
invoice.
question.
Yeah.
How do we approve them?
How do we
I
approve?
think if Stantec's, I believe, and this is, I'm checking with them also, I think if Stantec approves them, then we can submit them to EFC and get the ball rolling, and then when we have our regular meeting, we will present the ones that have come in.
The Stantec needs to
So-
get them to you and me at least for like an internal,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Check
can we
on
just
that.
have
I mean, we already have a.
two sign-offs? Can we have you and Brant be the sign-off signatures?
our contract administrator is administration is Stantec, so
Right.
it's kind of been approved, you
Okay.
know?
Right, and we're in
Well-
contract with them, so it's not, it's.
Somebody here should review it, though.
Yeah,
without
and then
just
we'll
that.
review
That
it.
would
You
be
review it.
Brant,
Right.
definitely.
Well, and you,
Yeah,
Okay,
so till you do the review and then give the blessing.
okay.
Okay. That's what I'd like to propose.
okay.
I
Because
do.
If we
otherwise-
have to keep getting together.
Yeah,
that's
like
just
once
gonna-
a week,
So-
that's,
It's going to impact our cash flow, like you said.
All right, so, I don't know if we have to approve that, that's part of the discussion that we'll do. So, all right, so we have a
Okay.
first, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the 132?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right. Do you have anything else? Because are we?
That's
you
it, I think.
didn't have Brandy, you want Brandy to talk about?
oh yeah, Brandy was gonna talk about the hallucidic acids.
Yeah,
Real
Brandy, are
quick.
you okay to do that? It's kind of last minute.
Yes, do you want me to go up?
Please.
So, good evening. For the record, I'm Brandy Nelson with Tie and Bond. So we've been working with the village since June on the haloacetic HAA5 exceedance in the water system. As part of that process, in June, there was a public notice of that exceedance, and then the village has taken a multi-pronged approach, which Brant's been working with Brian and John on, which has included some operational changes at the plant, some additional flushing, but then procedurally, we have to go through a process with the health department to do what's called an operation evaluation level analysis. So that's a report that looks at how the plant was operating before the exceedance, and then discusses the sampling and the sample results over the last year, and includes some follow-up sampling that's been done since the exceedance occurs, and we're pleased to report that there has not been any additional exceedances since the May incident. And so we have incorporated all that information along with some recommendations as to how to hopefully improve operations to further avoid a similar instance in the future. That has been submitted in draft form to Dave Pearson at the County Health Department. He got back to us on Friday with a few fairly minor comments, asked us to do a little bit of clarifying on a couple of items, but we anticipate having that back to the village by the end of this week. And then you can go ahead and we'll provide you an executive summary, which you could make available on your website, and then we'll make sure Pat's got a copy of the full report if there are any questions.
And we can distribute that.
Absolutely. And then we could probably at that point have a conversation, since you're going to be heading into your budget discussions for the next fiscal year, about if there are any recommendations that make sense for any capital planning, either in the coming year or in any future years.
So just in simple terms, they came back, Pearson came back with a couple of minor, you said some minor request changes. Are they financially driven, or are they just clarification?
Specifically, his questions were just around the way we were presenting some of the data. He wanted us to just clarify when certain samples were taken, so very, very minor. He hasn't made any recommendations on operational changes outside of what we had presented to him, which we had discussed with Brant and Brian and John in the last month or so.
Okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
I'm looking forward to this
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
concluding.
You too.
Happy holidays.
Brandon.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right. Wastewater.
Mr. Mayor, as Brent mentioned, we've got the site visits lined up for tomorrow, and I'll just, we've already kind of chatted about the work that we're doing, and we think that we have made an inroad with one of our subscribers who discharges from their own pump to us, to our plant, and that particular change, just for the value of, for the education of the board, that subscriber, instead of discharging every 180 seconds, is going to cut that in half to every 90 seconds. So the sewage cycles will be twice as much as they've been. We think that will remove some of the odor that's probably being created by stagnation. So, we received a nice letter from the folks that oversee this pump station about Brian Bacamo, and I sent that to John and to the Mayor Bassett as well.
So the net, it wasn't coming from our site.
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, no,
Yeah.
no.
I'm
Other than, you know, the,
This particular issue.
correct. So, fingers crossed again, we think it's maybe solved, so.
And the ramp is done?
Ramp came out terrific, yeah, thank you, everybody,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we're working on the apron to get done before the end of the year. The metal grates,
Yeah, the grates, yeah, yes, we are, yeah.
not the aprons, the metal
Yeah,
grates.
yes, Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to accept all the department reports as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Adios. See you all tomorrow. Tree report.
The tree commission, tree commission did not meet prior to this month's meeting. However, we will all be, many of us will be gathering on Monday morning for our first hands-on education session with our new tree keeper software. The survey and management plan are in the process of being completed. I haven't yet received them, but we are going to get some hands-on experience with how to actually use the database, how to integrate it with the trees that we have. And we're looking forward to, the tree commission is looking forward to getting their hands on the information and starting to work it for the village.
Cool. That's it?
That's it.
All right, next on the agenda is our climate. Our climate task force, which is being led by Vanessa Bertozzi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Vanessa Bertozzi, 25 Sortini Drive, and I'm the coordinator of the Climate Smart Community Task Force. So I'm here to give a little bit of an update about our work. As you know, we will be filing our for the first time on January 10th. That's our big deadline. We're working towards the goal of getting bronze certification. As a reminder, that's 120 points, and 3 of the actions need to be priority. Our application will ask for 135 points. So we have a 15-point buffer there. I did have a conversation with one of the Department of Environmental Conservation's our point person there, and she said that they do a very systematic and thorough review of what we submit, and so she's encouraging us to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, but she said that our application thus far is looking pretty impressive, so I'm hopeful that we will get the certification. So just a couple examples of what type of items we're talking about here. For example, a priority action was installing the EV charging stations. So that is one of the 3 most heavyweight actions that we're taking. Another example, we did a review of all of the indoor lighting fixtures that have been changed over to LEDs. And Of all the municipal properties, when you look at the total portfolio, 88% of our indoor lighting is now LED. So that gets us a really high number of points. So we're continuing to work. There's still some outstanding items. Our vehicle inventory is almost done, still waiting for fire department. We'll be putting up an educational poster for the public at Village Hall about the solar panels on the roof. We're also working on a larger strategic plan for how to do education and engagement with the community, coming from us as a task force representing the village. There's also the joint IMAs with the town, hoping to get those signed by the town so we can include that as an innovative approach to more fuel efficiency. Yeah, so what to expect? After January 10th, our contact at the DEC said, okay, they will start the review. It's a 6 to 8 week process, she said, but then we will be getting some pretty detailed feedback, which will be helpful. Once everything has been reviewed and approved, then that goes live in public for anyone in the world to see via this DEC Climate Smart Communities website. So this is very much a public filing. Another update, we have a few new members, which is really exciting. We have Chantal Collins, who is a teacher at Chancellor Livingston School, and she is the head of the environmental club there. We're very excited to have her on board. Also, Karina Borden, who is former Conservation Advisory Board member, and now she's on the board of the Farmers Market. She's a food and food waste expert. And then also Nan Jackson, who is programming director at the Star Public Library. She's not fully committed to being on the board, but at the very least she'll be a wonderful partner to work closely with. So we're still waiting to hear about that greenhouse gas inventory emissions program and grant. Hoping by next month I would have an update about that. And so I just want to say thank you again for everyone's participation. Pat Kuhn has been amazing in digging up all this documentation. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to the board. I know there's some additional resolutions that I'm asking for, and again, that's because I have to dot all these I's and cross all the T's. So the Unified Solar Permit resolution, and then the task force resolution itself. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right, great, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you might want to stay because as we go through the resolutions.
Great.
As a result of the review, and as Vanessa mentioned, they were very critical about our review process. They asked us to, what we had previously done, had approved the creation of the task force. We also approved the universal solar permit in our previous meetings, but they asked us now to document that with a resolution. It wasn't, even though we voted on it and approved it and wrote a letter, right, they now are asking for resolutions for the same thing that we had pretty much asked for. So Vanessa and I...
Feels a little redundant, but we're just trying to do it by the book.
Yeah, we're to get it all. So the first one is a resolution creating the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, which we approved. So I'll quickly read that into the record. Whereas the Village of Rhinebeck's Village Board and the Environmental Committee have undertaken a number of activities in support of the village climate change action initiatives, including, among other things, the preparation of a climate action plan adopted by the Village Board. And whereas New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has encouraged the creation of a local climate change task force to provide the village with information about establishing and implementing climate smart initiatives, to propose new ideas to the village board, and to identify funding sources for projects and paybacks from investments. Now therefore be it hereby resolved by the village board of the Village of Rhinebeck as follows. The Village of Rhinebeck's Climate Smart Task Force is hereby created to be initially chaired by Vanessa Pertozzi. Number 2, the task force must include at least one representative from the local government, which either be a staff or elected official, and must include at least 2 community members, which we meet. 3, we should initially develop and present to the village board a statement of purpose of proposed activities. The task force shall meet at least twice annually, which we've been doing. And number 4, the resolution shall take effect immediately. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the resolution creating the Climate Smart Communities Task Force.
Second.
Any discussion?
Does the task force have a requirement that the community members be villages, residents of the village, or does it not matter?
The NYSERDA grant does not. We as a village can say and decide whether we want to do that or not. So it's really our call.
So you could live in a village or not, you can be part of the task force?
In this case, we're looking for experts, in some cases, to be on the task force. Sometimes those experts will not reside within the village boundaries.
Okay.
So, like our
Take a-
environmental committee, it exceeds those boundaries.
Right.
It's, in this case, we're exceeding the boundaries as well, because we want to get the right people. We want anybody. We want everybody that can, but we also want people that
Right.
are concrete experts to be able to do
And
this.
the only requirement is that at least 2 be community members, so. Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. All right, so Pat will sign this one, get that up to our board. The other one, which we talked about at the last meeting, was the Unified Solar Permit. They came back and asked us to also pass a resolution. We adopted the Unified Solar Permit at our last meeting. They want us to document that with a resolution. All right, so I'll read that into the record as well. Dated December 10th, 2019, whereas the New York State has developed a unified solar photovoltaic permitting process designed to streamline municipal permitting, which will reduce costs for solar projects and support the growth of clean energy jobs across the state. And whereas the Village of Rhinebeck is participating in the unified permitting process, thereby increasing the village's eligibility for various incentives and grants through the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Rhinebeck adopts the New York State Unified Solar Permit as attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and be it further resolved that the resolution shall take effect immediately, and a copy of this resolution shall be provided to our building inspector's office.
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion?
I made a motion, yes.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Very good. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
I'll put them on letterhead and have Gary sign them and then send them to you.
Okay, Grants Committee.
Okay, thank you, Gary, thank you. The board is aware that we did not receive our application to the Frost Foundation, which was an important component to being able to do potentially the project of the sidewalk on West Chestnut. We were denied, and of course, Mayor Bassett did the right thing, which was to reach out to the county and say, we'll rescind on our application because we can't do one without the other, so. We do have completion of the tree inventory DEC grant. That was due on the 4th, and we got that in on the 1st, and we're asking for $49,300. The total project is $65,000. We had to put up 25%, but that has been covered as in-kind. We have vetted what we would be using as in-kind costs with the administrators of the grant and our local forester. We won't know the results, guys, until probably, the spring.
This is for the maintenance.
The maintenance, yeah, did I say the inventory?
Yeah.
I'm
it's for
sorry,
the-
I'm sorry.
This is for,
Yeah.
this is for work along state roads, which is.
Yes.
Which is specifically applied for in the grant.
Yeah.
Using the information that we got from our initial tree inventory, and we had the folks at Davy.
Davy.
Quickly draw us up a quick plan so we could hit the deadline. So a number of people came together to get information to the grants committee so they could get this in.
Yeah.
And this would be the first example of us trying to leverage that initial grant that we got to actually do
Yes.
this management and inventory database. This is our first attempt to leverage the information.
And one can't be done without the other. We
Right.
could not be filing for this if we did not have.
Right.
the Frost
We
Foundation.
identified that in the process,
Yeah.
that we
So
needed
that's-
84B.
Yeah.
But that's how all this is unraveled.
Just so the board knows, Mr. Mayor, that the inventory fed us the high priorities on the 2 state roads. 25 trees are marked to be taken down across 2 years, and 52 highlighted for what's considered as high-risk pruning. So 77 trees in total will be impacted. So, look, and I just want to close on the note that last month the board agreed, I supported it as well, that we would move forward with an RFP. We thought we might have that tonight to give consideration to outside consultants, outside engineering firms, because that potentially could manage the grant program better than what we've been able to do with the committee. That said, as we kind of sign off on the grant committee, I do want the board to and the community to know that in the span of from September 2017 to November of this year, we did do 14 grants. And there were 2 more that I think we can take some credit for as an assist, Rick's grant and of course Brant's water main grant. Just, there was information that was of value to those grants. So a total of 16. We won 4, assisted on 2 more wins, and we have 1 more that's outstanding there. If anyone is interested in the history of the grant, I've got everything documented. Happy to email anybody a copy. Thanks.
Can you email me a copy? So I
Of
have
course. Yes, Pat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've been tremendously successful, and
Not that anybody's fault of anybody. We tried, we
no.
definitely tried hard.
Yeah, and
We're playing in a very competitive game out there, and that's why we're trying to retool it. So just a couple of comments on the community development block grant, which I did reach out to the county and tell them that we were not successful at receiving the other one. They said thank you. They didn't say anything else, but they just said thank you. So with that, I also reached out to our Frost Foundation, who we submitted for the other half. And the short answer is there just was insufficient funds in the Frost Foundation. We were asking for a heavy lift of $150,000, right, out of that, which is a heavy lift from their 300 and some odd thousand, which they had distributed. And the village has already been a recipient of several grants from the Frost Foundation. So we're very thankful for what we received from the Frost Foundation and are looking forward to working with them as partners going forward in the future. It is what it is, but if the funds were available, I think we could have been in better, but we've already been benefited by the Frost Foundation.
That's great.
And as John mentioned, we were looking for trying to move forward with an RFP. We actually had a meeting with one of the grant writers, Donna Warner, which, Donna and John have done a tremendous job in terms of getting these 14 grants and pushing them through, right? The review with Donna was very opening. In other words, by her own admission, Donna said we were basically putting grants in without understanding the full culture environment which we are submitting to and the people and understanding a lot. We were doing our best. They did their best, but she even recognizes that we need to step back, and she would suggest that we take a different approach. And the approach that she suggested is that we as a board decide what our priorities are and go after those selected grants. We've been reactive rather than proactive on these grant processes.
That's true.
We hear about a grant and we say, wow, let's go, all right? And we have a very short timeline.
We jumped down to Poughkeepsie
Yes.
that afternoon.
I mean, we hear about it, we jump in the car, we do whatever, and that's turning out not to be the best approach.
No.
You need 6 months to really understand and get the data and go through a review process, get it reviewed by us, get it reviewed by external parties, do all these kind of things. So I think we as a board need to also take a much broader view in parallel to what's going on to figure out how we do grants, to start setting priorities and work on grants that we think we need to target based on where we think we're going. And that part of that is going to come out of our planning process that we're going to go through, our budget planning process, which you heard tonight and Karen and I have discussed. We're going to start in January. So at that time, I think I'm asking you as board members to come forward also with what your priorities are for grants so that we can kind of tee them up and then know what kind of things we need to go after and circulate to get to it. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that. I think, we're learning We've learned a lot
Oh, yeah.
in terms of what we've done, and we're continuing that learning process.
Because I think we jumped in the deep end and we started swimming, and that was the
Yeah.
thing to do.
And so thank you to everybody who's done that. All right, special requests? Do we have any, Pat?
We had one that had come in late, it came in late. It's not until September of 2020. I have sent it to, I had a couple of questions to the applicant. It's for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. I've sent it to Pete and to John and to the fire, but with Sinterklaas, they didn't have a chance, so we can address it during January.
Okay.
But it is included on the cloud now so that you can take a look at it, as well as the history of what the Gentleman's Ride is about. And I think I put the email thread in because he wants to have vendors and peddlers selling things. And I questioned if that was going to be on village streets, and no, it's going to be contained to the fairgrounds, because that's where he is starting from. And that was confirmed with Andy and Prati at the fair.
And that's new this year. Last year, when they did it this year, 2019, they didn't have vendors.
They didn't have the vendors, but
Right.
that was something that they thought would be advantageous to the riders, you know, to have coffee or whatever for them, and at the start of the ride.
And this is limited to 130 riders, if I remember right.
It
For one-
is 150.
150 riders?
100, and the time, peak attendance is from 9 to 10 in the morning, with 9 to 12:30 in the afternoon returning, and 1:30 to 2 dispersing. But I haven't had police, like I said, I didn't have police and fire feedback yet, because with everything, they were extremely busy, so, and this came in late, but it was worth mentioning.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That was the only one I had.
Other business. I have one item of other business that just came to me today, and it came from our town supervisor, Elizabeth Spinzia. They're going through their reorganization in preparation for the new year. She had asked if I would ask the board if we would be interested in a joint ethics committee. That's the extent of the ask, right? Open for comment and discussion.
They can use our ethics board. We have very similar statutes, because I worked
Right.
on, I kind
Ours
of,
is somewhat
I
different,
crafted the one over there, and then,
but ours is slightly modified differently.
it's like,
Yes.
I helped put it together way back when, but we can use other ethics boards, so they could use our 3-person ethics board. If that's what they're asking, that would,
Her request was they're having a hard time getting members.
right.
We have
So-
members.
We have members, so they could probably use ours. Although I think that one requires, because I was on it twice, more members.
You're still on their board.
No, not
No?
anymore. No.
According to their list, you are,
Okay.
just so you know.
Should we check with
Am I the
our?
So maybe
chairperson?
are they desperate or, but I'm sorry.
Should we check with our board members to see how they?
What their docket is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, their workload, how it's integrated.
That's a good idea.
But they might have, yeah.
Well, first it's up to us. If we want to pursue it, I have no, you're the liaison, right?
I am.
So-
I think it's, I think what you're saying, the first question was how compatible are the codes? If you're saying highly, that's a good, because obviously our ethics people would have to learn the.
It's very similar.
Right, the different parts.
Yeah,
Well-
it came from a law review article that I modified with, with other folks.
And it
having
is,
input,
I mean, it is taking on another board, a whole new set of responsibilities, and that's not what people signed up for.
Right.
So I think I'd want to talk it over with them before I made.
Right.
I agree.
And
So,
what I was getting at, though, is I think they need to modify their code slightly and just say that they could use, because I
Our
think
code.
theirs requires five members of the town of Rhinebeck or something. So,
and the other thing, if we were to modify ours, we went through a modification of ours.
Yeah.
Remember?
Right.
And we went through the full code review. It was a code change, public hearing. We did the whole,
they're both good
the whole thing.
codes, I trust me,
Right.
they're good.
I know, but
Yeah.
if there was any modification, we'd have to go back through that process
Yeah.
to change our code. So our recommendation is, one, we do the ask to our ethics committee if we want to, if would take on the town using
Yes.
that, right?
Definitely.
Okay,
Right, so that's the first one, that's the
All right.
first one.
very good.
So can I just ask a question? So then if there was a joint town village, so if they took on ours, it would be just village residents on the town ethics board?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that's true, absolutely.
That's a good point.
If that's okay with them, then that's, I mean, you're just looking for, you can actually use the county ethics board to, you know, interpret a code, but
I just want to just
Residents of the
get that
village.
that's a
clear.
good point, though.
Huh?
Residents of the village are residents.
I know, but
Yeah.
they don't have, yeah.
Yes, you're right, Pat.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, probably would require very little
Okay.
effort,
Well,
but
you know.
He'll do the ask?
if your members are okay with it.
Yeah,
or
that's-
our
So
members.
we're gonna do the ask and then we'll go
Yeah.
forward. I think that's fair. All right, I don't have any other business. Anybody else for the other business? No other business? Minutes approval. Minutes for 11/12/19, which was our last public board meeting. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Brand's name is spelled incorrectly. It's not Brand, it's Brandt. It says
Just
BR.
once, or?
It says BR, it says BRAND.
Oh,
Pat, right on the top of page 1.
I don't have them here.
Okay. It's a D instead of a T. That's all. Nothing else wrong with it, nothing. Great.
All right. Amend the motion to approve the 11/12/19 with the corrections as noted. All in favor? Do I have a
Aye.
second?
Aye.
Excuse me, a
Second.
second. All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. 11/26/19, I'd like to make a motion to approve, which was that was our information sharing meeting, right, Pat? If I remember right? I don't have the minutes in front of me right
That's
now either.
correct, that's right.
Yeah, so for Livingston Street water,
Correct.
right. So I'd like to have a motion to approve. Is that a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to start again, at the very top of the heading, the meeting did start at 6. I don't think we waited to 6:30 to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, sorry, right
Right?
away.
It's a,
All right.
I mean, there might have been some conversation, before, but, so Pat, I think that should be,
No, we kicked it off.
the mayor opened the meeting at like 6:05 or something, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Otherwise, that's it.
No, I didn't have Aaron Moore.
Oh, right, yeah. That was weird, yeah.
Well, I've never seen a business card from her, and she didn't sign the log, so I had no idea what the woman's
Oh.
name was. So, and she's never copied me on an email. So,
You wouldn't know, right.
yeah, so that will be corrected.
That's fixed.
Yeah, I
as
had
well.
provided that information to when I came up, but you must not got it, but that's okay. We'll get it. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, correspondence. Pat?
I sent them all, and I put them on the cloud. We had, I'm just going to summarize quick what they were. A complaint about parking regarding Sinterklaas, and that was forwarded to everyone. A public hearing notice from the town of Rhinebeck for 41 Violet Hill Road from the town planning board. The letter from Frost Memorial Fund regarding the grant requests, which we've already covered. From the New York State Department of Public Service, and it was asking our assistance for outreach and education about energy costs for the public, and I have that information, and it's how to file. Dutchess County Tourism, thank you to Mayor Bassett for their support of Dutchess County Tourism. And today came in late, and I'd like to put this on the website if I could. Rhinebeck Central School District Superintendent of Public Schools Joe Phelan is going to be retiring, and let's see, effective January 31, 2020, and they're looking for, they have a link, is a survey, and it's basically just surveys. It's a search for a superintendent. So they're having a difficulty. I talked to the school board president, Diane Lyons, today, and she's trying desperately to get the word out to the residents who don't have children in the schools. So she asked any assistance that I could do for her to get the word out. And currently looking for input from all stakeholders, and that was the two things. Public forums, which they have set, but it was a letter, and then the second is the survey, and that's that.
So this dovetails into a discussion we've been having with the Climate Smart Community Task Force in writing a letter to the school board to make a recommendation in terms of some attributes that we would like to see from a climate initiative back to the school as well for their part of their search process. I also reached out to the school board to see if that was agreeable, and I mean the school superintendent, he thought that was totally agreeable to push forward to say, hey, here's input from a committee, which is working very closely with the school on a lot of climate-related issues to also make that request. So
We want a climate smart superintendent.
we want a climate smart, yes.
So, may I put this on our website? And
Sure, absolutely.
That's all the correspondence.
There was one more request that came in very, very late, like 6:30, and it was in regard to street lighting at the crosswalk at CVS.
Yeah, you told me.
And this person is claiming a near miss because the lighting is so dark at that crosswalk, and basically asking the village to step up and do something about it. We've addressed this crosswalk on several issues, trying to get it lighted with a grant, trying to do some more things. But I'm going to ask you, Trustee Lewitt, maybe you could reach out to our utility provider to see if they could increase the illumination at that point.
I think you may actually want to move one of the lights. Actually, I was surveying that a couple of weeks ago, when we actually want to juggle where some of the actual light arms are. And I think once again, we should probably look at getting some sort of illuminated signs, some sort of pedestrian illuminated signs at that crosswalk. Because even if it's well lit, I go through there, if there's a car coming, you get a lot of glare. At night, you get a lot of glare. It's hard to see somebody who's on the opposite side of the street and maybe stepping into the crosswalk. If there's an oncoming car, so it might be nice to have some illuminated signs. So we can look at both. That will be part of what we're looking at with the LED streetlights. So,
Okay. Well, I mean, to make some initial action, if we could you
Sure.
reach out to the utility to see, on your recommendation, to either move the light or improve illumination there?
There are two poles kind of on either side where you could bring the lights closer to them.
So Pat, I'll forward that to you, and so then you can respond based on
Yeah,
our
okay.
discussion tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any other correspondence? I think that's it. To close out the meeting, one of the things I always like to do is recognize the village staff on particularly their anniversaries. They all work hard. They put in a lot of hours. They're really a dedicated group of people that are committed to the village in a lot of ways. So tonight I'd like to recognize Police Officer in Charge Sergeant Peter Dunn, right, who now has 18 years of service, effective December 1st. All right, thank you, Sergeant Dunn. Deputy Clerk Chrissy Deneau, which we all correspond and work with on a daily basis, and who gets the highest volume of traffic, I think, around for people paying water bills and sewer bills and everything else. So thank you, Deputy Clerk Chrissy Deneau, for her work as also our water treasurer. And Police Officer Steve Hannenberg. This guy's going for the record, 34 years. Congratulations, Officer Hannenberg, 34 years of service, effective December 10th, which is today. I reached out and gave him a big thank you as well. And our Highway Foreman, Mike Wolf, 27 years of service, effective December 14th. So thank you to all of those people who work diligently to serve our village. All right. That's it, unless anybody has anything for executive session. Being none.
Did we have appointments for the ZBA? Was that, I saw that somewhere. Was that last month?
We
or-
did that 2 months ago.
Okay, the meeting I missed, okay.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, we did that. Yeah. Okay. Having none, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our December 10th, last meeting of the year at 9:29.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you all.
Thank you.